We're all set, yeah.
We're all set. Good. All right. This is our December 23rd, 2020 CPC meeting. We are meeting remotely. I will be reading from our script for remotely conducted open meetings. As a preliminary matter, I'm Peter Pingitore, I'm the chair. I will confirm that all members are present and that you can hear me. And as our custom, we will be doing calling in alphabetical order as best we can. So when I call your name, state your name, state in the affirmative that you can hear me and that you're present.
Alphabetical order as best you can, Peter. I thought you're a law school graduate.
You know, sometimes I mess it up.
Yeah.
I just that's all. I'm doing the best I can.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't
Alpert.
think Artie's here.
He's not.
No, Artie's not here. He's worn out. He needs to rest. Okay.
Artie's
Alpert,
Here.
Barnes,
Here.
Crocker,
Not here.
Dermody,
Here.
Dorfman,
Here.
Gerstel,
Here.
Kirk,
Here.
Zimbone, Rick. Unmute.
Good morning. Hit the space bar, Rick.
Here.
Okay, Rick.
Oh,
good.
yell louder. Here.
Okay, good. And Pingitore is present. Okay, when I still call your name, Kristen Wright
Here,
and Carys Lustig.
here.
This open meeting of the CPC is being conducted remotely, consistent with the governor's executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of COVID-19. In order to mitigate the transmission of COVID-19, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to conducting meetings remotely, consistent with the Governor Baker's order due to the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of COVID-19, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings. And as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded, so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required. This meeting will not feature public comment. We are convening by Zoom app as posted on our town's website, identifying how the public may join. It is posted along with our agenda. I'll remind everyone, in order to provide a clean record, that just make sure that either I state your name or you state your name before speaking on the record. Please note the meeting is being recorded. Some attendees are participating by video conference. Please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and you should take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All of your supporting materials should have been provided to you. That is available on the town's website. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. We'll turn to our first agenda item. Before we do so, I'll cover some ground rules. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After he or she concludes remarks, the chair will I'll go down the line of members in alphabetical order, inviting each of you by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking, and remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. And as I've said, just make sure that your name is on the record when you either by me or by you before you speak. For any response, please wait until I yield the floor to you and state your name. Each vote we take will be by roll call. Let's turn to our agenda. Chairman's updates. I do not have any updates at this time. So I may have some comments on some of the applications as we go along, but we can handle that in due course. So no chairman's updates. The next item is determination of eligibility. Town hall clock repairs. So I was not here at our last meeting. if anyone wants to fill me in, I can see why we deferred it. And if it's just that we deferred it in order to have a further discussion, we can pick it up from there. If there was some additional information that we were seeking from the proponent, well, let's hear it. So if anyone can fill me in. Anyone? No. Did you defer? Yeah, go ahead, Bob. Bob, Robert Dermody, unmute, please.
Yes, I am now unmuted. Since no one else raised their hand, I'll jump in. And I did reread their application this afternoon, and I think there was some concern about whether or not it was eligible with regard to the type of work being done. Seemed to me, and maybe some others, to describe maybe more routine maintenance and repair that, from what I understand, is not covered. So I think and we decided not to vote that it was ineligible, but just maybe to have another conversation or think about it some more. So
Okay.
please, anyone else add to that if Chris, or well, sorry, Mr. Chair.
All right, so why don't we, I could go alphabetical if you'd prefer, or if you just want me to go lightning round with whose hands are up, because we've already had a discussion, we can do that.
So Peter
All right.
is the liaison. I think that's why I'm sorry, Chris is the liaison, and I believe that's why he is raising his hand.
All right, Chris, let's hear
You're
from you.
correct. So I did speak with Barry, who is the gentleman that submitted the CPC request. And I told him that we stated that we had to determine the eligibility on it. I asked him to give us a little more meat for the bone to describe the work on there. Now, when I did speak with him was yesterday. It's going to take about a week for him to get that information together. One point that we did kind of come to an agreement of in regards to the eligibility, and I'm not looking at it in front of me, is it under historic that it was submitted, Carys? So, I mean, with it being historic, it falls in the town hall, which is also historic. So we weren't questioning that, but you're right, we were questioning the eligibility of it. Is it just routine maintenance, or is it something that is on there that he is going to get a presentation or a more robust description of the work to be done, so I can present to CPC? He just did not have it at this time. But when I did tell him that we were going to be talking about it because we were questioning the determination of the eligibility, he is going to give us a very deep intellect into what work the scope is to be done.
Okay, I welcome that, because I don't see it as anything other than maintenance.
Mhm.
And I think that whoever drafted the request took great pains not to write the word paint. But as near as I could tell, gold leaves are not leaves that grow on trees that are made out of gold.
Mhm.
It's paint. This is a painting job.
Right. And that's
So
why I asked, is
and
it
it's-
falling apart? Can it not tell time? He goes, no, it's in perfect working order. So,
Yeah. So that means it would be incidental repairs which neither materially add to the value of the property nor appreciably prolong the property's life, but keep the property in a condition of fitness, efficiency, or readiness. Maintenance, not funded under the CPC.
Mhm.
So, I mean, we can have them make another, they can make a presentation, but I think that's, I mean, I don't want to, I just would want to be efficient with the whole thing, that's all.
right. Why have him do a presentation if we're not going to deem it eligible under CPC guidelines?
It's, okay, I don't know if Carys wants to weigh in on this, but.
So I'll just say I did touch base with the town manager and with one of the analysts in building maintenance. And I believe the reason they thought it was eligible is because this work was originally included as part of the town hall renovation, the same work of performing restoration of the clock. And I think one of the things when I did actually touch base with Barry as well, he had indicated sort of the difference between maintenance and restoration sometimes has to do with reviving the historic significance. So as opposed to just repainting the clock, they are doing the school leaf application and taking off the numbers and painting them reattached.
So was the clock restored back as part of the actual town hall restoration?
That's my understanding.
So we're going to
Yeah,
restore it again? We're going to pay to restore it again?
I don't know if it was painted the first time.
That's
what we're trying to
again,
question,
maybe I'm
what was
speaking out
done.
of turn, but that seems
No?
crazy. That's all I can say.
That's
That means
what
so
he's looking
we're the permanent maintenance crew
Mhm.
for anything that we preserve, anything we fund as a historic preservation. That's crazy. Okay. maybe, again, maybe I've been off, maybe I've been off and, maybe I'm being too glib. So, all right, Paul.
You're being glib, but I don't think you're being too glib. I think I'm willing to give them an opportunity. I'm willing to defer this until the next meeting, but they're gonna have to come in with something really good and different in order to convince me that it's not maintenance. If this was part of the restoration of Town Hall originally, which was how many years ago? And it was work that wasn't done at that time.
No, it was done.
Well, that's,
We're getting clarification on
We
that.
get
We're
that.
trying to get clarification on
there.
what was done.
if the work was done, then this is just maintenance. They're repainting it. They're, doing routine repairs to work that was done then. If was for some reason not done and they're saying, well, this is restoration because it was part of the town hall project then, I say the clock has run on that. It was part of the original budget. So go back to town hall and get the money from the original budget for this, which is probably, I don't see it as qualifying, but.
Okay, well, wait, well, so then I would say, Chris, I think our time is, our personal time is valuable, so I don't, let's wait and hear from them. I don't think you need to invest a lot of time and due diligence on it, right? So let's hear back from them and we can slow roll it and we'll see what, if anything, the sense of would anyone like to weigh in further? So we had an opportunity to review the application. We have reviewed the statute. There's pretty statutory language. It's pretty square that addresses this. Does anyone else want to weigh in and give their opinion so that we may even be giving them a sense of what the committee is thinking? Bob Dermody.
Yes, Bob Dermody here. I would just like to go on the record saying I do not think it's eligible.
Okay. Okay. We're trying not to even though I've said a lot of things, we're trying to give them,
Given what we've been told,
Yeah.
I don't think it's eligible. And I am concerned that we're almost bending the rules here to say, hey, go back and switch these words so you can make it eligible. I don't want to do that.
We're not
Okay.
asking that. We're asking more of a deeper scope of the
Yeah.
work was done 10 years ago and what they're looking to do now. We're not asking them to reword it to fit into the category. We're asking them for why is it now here? What happened 10 years ago? We need the backstory.
Well,
At
if
least
there's
I
no
need the backstory.
rewording, this is Bob Dermody again. If there's no rewording, the word repair is right in their application.
All right. I'm frozen here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
All right. So Paul Alpert.
Yeah, Peter, thank you for reading the definition for maintenance, but I want to go further and say that there is also a statutory definition for restoration,
Yeah.
which I've read, and this, as far as I can see, does not fall under the statutory definition of restoration.
Right. There is a definition of restoration. Yes, I thought the easiest way to deal with it was defined it by maintenance, but that's very good, Mr. Alpert, Attorney Alpert. That's a good point. Okay, Laura Dorfman. And Joe,
So is there any point in going back to the original town hall project and looking at some of the language in that document to see if there was any reference made to future requirements or upkeep of what that project was intended for? I don't know.
So I'll just clarify, I don't think that because the original work was funded by CPC, that there's an assumption that future work has to be funded by CPC. I think there's just an assumption that the work would be eligible because the work had been eligible before.
and
It
I
could be
think,
funded by other means.
and I think the way that we should be looking at our work is that whoever the proponents are taking as broad a view as they possibly can in submitting these applications, and they're expecting us to make the call. Okay, so I think that that's what we're faced with. Okay, so we should be used to saying no, because it looks like we're getting a lot of applications that may or may not be actually, in the black, as they say. So we need to make those calls. That's all. So, and that's fine. There's no, I think that if we're starting to get the rhythm of that, that's what we're seeing. And if that's the case, that's fine. We know what our job is. We have to read the statute. We're gonna exercise some discretion. We're gonna see if it fits it fits within the definitions, and we'll make the call. Right. All right, now, Joe Barnes.
Is it fair for us to ask Chris to go back to Barry and have him share with him the gist of this conversation? It seems a little bit as though we're leading him down the primrose path to have him come in with some presentation, when in fact it seems pretty clear to all of us that what he's looking for is repair / maintenance, not restoration. I know you'd give him the opportunity to just withdraw. If he wants to go forward, then I guess that would be his choice. But I think he ought to be hearing what the members have said.
Okay, well, that's what I was saying in terms of a sense of the board. So if we don't need to have a formal vote on that, but I'll like to hear from. I guess what we'll do is I'll hear from each of you that there's, that the sense of the board is that this looks to be like a maintenance project. And so he should, and not restoration. So we have some serious reservations about funding it and its eligibility. And I think that's being fair to everyone. And so, Joe, I think that's a good idea, but I'll ask each one of you if you feel that's okay if you feel comfortable with that communication. Okay. I guess I don't really need to do a vote. Why don't we say that's as I articulated it? Does anyone not agree with that communication? Why don't we start with that? Anyone disagree? So we're we'll all have that sense of the board, if you will. Correct? Without voting.
Correct.
All right. Penny, nodding. Good. Okay. And Laura too. Yes. All right. Good. All right. So there you go. That takes care of the town hall clock. Emery Grover. Oh,
Would you like a motion to defer the vote of eligibility?
thank you, Kristen. Let's have a motion to defer. I'll make that motion. Can I hear a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, second is by Chris Gerstel. Discussion. Hearing none, let's have a vote. We will go in alphabetical order. Alpert.
Yay.
Barnes.
Aye.
Dermody.
Aye.
Dorfman.
Aye.
Gerstel.
Aye.
Kirk.
Yes.
Zimbone.
Aye.
Pingitore votes aye. Okay, thank you, Kristen, again. All right, now liaison updates and due diligence questions. We'll start with FY 2201 Emery Grover renovation and addition project. So hold on, please. So Dermody and Barnes are on that.
Yep.
Okay.
Joe, you want to fill us in?
Why don't I start off and you jump in?
Great.
Bob and I had a Zoom meeting with Dan Gudikants yesterday. I think it's fair to say, not only with the discussion, but also reading the report again, the need that Emery Grover displays is well documented. We certainly don't have to go through the wide range of needs that building has. Some of the more glaring one was the collapse of the east portico back in early 2000. The fact it's not accessible. I've been in that building many a time, and just the fact that the windows don't close completely. There's no air conditioning. The roof is a mess. I mean, all those things I think are pretty obvious. So some of the questions we raised, I said to Dan that one of the criticisms that is leveled against the school department or the PPBC is that often the request is not enough. We open schools and before the kids go in, they're overcrowded. That has happened time and time again, and we know that there are limitations placed on the schools on PPBC based on reimbursement. But I asked him, is the 30,000 square feet that they're requesting, does he anticipate that as being enough for the needs of now versus any possible changes going forward? He thought it was. He said that the 30,000 feet, 30,000 square foot structure would allow for space for anticipated needs that may not be used right now. There's a chance there might be some shifting of offices or personnel from schools into the central office building to make space for the needs of the individual schools. So he thought that the whole design would meet his needs presently and also anticipated needs going forward. I asked him that it appeared as though there was some zoning issues regarding parking. Did he anticipate that to be an obstacle in any way? They have spoken to the zoning board. It appears as though they are in a conversation that will be favorable down the road to the school department, that they will be able to make any zoning changes necessary. There is no change in the report. He doesn't anticipate anything being added to. Nothing has happened since the report was completed. They feel as though they've anticipated pretty much everything they can. He did go into a little detail about how he feels that, and we've heard this before, that Emery Grover is almost a gateway to downtown, that it is the first historical building, the first town building as you enter going up Highland Ave into the town area. And so he thinks that structure is very important, not only for the use of the school department, but also the aesthetics of the town and the need that the town has to maintain historical building. He thought that we asked him about the pandemic impact, and that's an unknown. He doesn't think that this pandemic would change anything about the design of the building, the need. What it would provide is room for training that they don't have now. Powers Hall isn't always available, but this building would now provide opportunities to bring larger groups together, which the schools does not have right now. So that was pretty much the discussion. We spoke for 20 or 25 minutes, and he was willing to come tonight and talk again. We felt that he had made his presentation twice and was very informative, and we didn't feel it was necessary. So I will turn it over to my colleague, Mr. Dermody.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes. I concur. That's a good summary of our meeting. When we were having the discussion about, the pandemic and space needs, I made the comment that I would hope the town is looking to build a 100-year building so that, this will survive and be useful through this pandemic and any others we have in the next 100 years. So we need to think long term. I reiterated the question about space. He covered that. I went over the process with him again about, the due diligence, but I compared it to the time when we did the feasibility on Emery Grover and took that to town meeting. This is we have a very well thought out, very clear proposal. This is what we want. And it's drawn, it's studied, it's very factual. So I think that's a good case. One comment that just popped into my head that I'll just share with you as colleagues is that my concern, there's a fine line, but I think it's understood we need a new space for the school administration. But I think it's a fine line between presenting just how bad this building is, because that might steer people to, well, then why would we even want to save it if it's that bad? And I think we need, maybe that I'm getting ahead of myself, but we need new space. Any building is savable. My concern is that people might say, well, why don't we just build a new one if it's that bad? So those are the things I'm already thinking about. That's all.
Okay. All right, let's go. All right, what I'll do is I'm going to go alphabetically from here, I think. Paul Alpert, any comments or questions?
Well, I just want to let you know where my thinking is right now, which is that it's clear that the Emery Grover building needs to either be rehabbed or replaced. That's not the issue. Whether it needs 30,000 square feet or more or less is not the issue with a CPC. Our issue is whether we want to fund the historic portion of it or not. The town needs to go forward and build an administration building for the schools. That's clear. Questions where the money's going to come from, and whether the money's going to come from us. And I still think that the major reason why they're rehabbing it and saving the facade instead of just tearing it down and building a new one is so that they can access our piggy bank, which is fine. That's they're free to do that. But I'm not convinced that we should be funding up to the maximum that we can fund, because they are saving the facade. And so a portion of it is considered historic, which is, I believe, we're talking close to 50%. I mean, we were talking, I think, like 11, 12, $13 million here. So I'm skeptical as to how far we want to go, even though this can and will be structured that it qualifies for CPC funds. I'm not convinced that we should go forward and pretty much, in my mind, use up our resources for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years on this one building. It's going to take away from a lot of other projects that will be eligible to fund, and we won't have the money for it. So I'm trying to keep an open mind, but you know, the discussion about whether or not they need a new building or not, that's a given in my mind. And it's not I don't need to be convinced that they need a new building. I just need to be convinced that we should be funding it. I've had my say.
Okay, thank you, Paul. And Laura Dorfman? Comments or questions?
I was just going to say to Bob's earlier comment about people questioning, you know, if this is the right thing to do. There was an extensive study done by, I can't remember the name of the firm, and they presented 3 options. And I think most of us have seen that. So I think if someone were to question why, you know, we would be doing this, there would be that as some backup documentation. It wasn't just done out of someone's, you know, fancy. It was done based on the research that went into this over a couple of years, I think, at least. I was looking for that while I was waiting to be called on, and I can't pull it up right away, but we all have seen it, I think. Carys, what was the name of the firm? It's
BR+A, I think, excuse me.
Sorry, we've seen it. We
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So Chris Gerstel, comments, questions?
No comments at this time. I think Mr. Alpert covered the 2 areas that I was thinking around the same page, so no other further comment.
Okay. And Penny Kirk, comments or questions?
Yeah, I really think that Mr. Alpert has a very good point to make. It may be subjective of me, but I don't really think it's that beautiful a building. But I also think that some of the new architecture in this town is not to my liking either. I don't know who chooses the architect, but a new building would probably be much more functional and would take us into the next century very well, and probably cost less than who knows, but it's an awful lot of money to put into an historical building.
Okay, Penny, that's a good point. And so Mr. Zimbone.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I share Paul Alpert's concerns, but I'm going to come out at a different tack. First of all, I 100% agree that the building, it needed to be replaced and the people needed to be out of there and something needed to be done 15 years ago. Back when Carys was working in building maintenance. I mean, back then it was just a disaster. And you couldn't go up in the attic because there were too many seagulls living up there. So it was just it was a disaster. And it's not fair to the people who have to work in that building. And just to be going through and having to put up with the conditions. So I don't think anybody is going to argue that the building needs to be changed or refurbished or whatever. I guess the issue is, you know, as far as the funding is concerned, there have been concerns that I've heard expressed about us spending this kind of money without really having a clear path ahead yet with capital, and I know the select board approved last night the capital plan, but you know, there's still a lot of uncertainty, and I know the finance committee has to review the capital plan. They haven't done that yet, and I know there's concerns on the members, from some of the members on the finance committee having been there previously, about whether the town should be embarking on anything, at least, and perhaps even having to postpone it a year. I don't know where that's gone. But from our perspective, one of the ideas I'd ask my fellow committee members to think about is we don't necessarily, as a committee, at least I don't believe that, and I'd be willing to have some discussion on it, have to go ahead and fund the design portion of this project. That if the historical renovation portion of the project is roughly 50%, we could hold off on and not fund the design until we get a clearer picture from town meeting what their belief is. If someone wants to fund this, they may not want to go out and spend the full 25, 26 million, whatever it's going to cost for the building. And I think from our perspective, what I hate to see, and not that it's ever happened, but us to put down some money to cover 50% of the cost of the design, come to find out later on that the town meeting members decided they didn't want to, you know, go forward with this particular project as they have it currently designed. And so I'm almost suggesting that we defer on making any commitment to the design funds. And if in fact they get through, and if town meeting is interested in pursuing it, which we'll know at next town meeting, have the town fund out of the capital plan the design. And then we can always pick up our 11 million or 50%, whatever that number translates to be, when we get into the actual construction. There's nothing, we don't have to do it on a pro rata basis. So I just throw that out for some thought. You know, it provides us some cover, if you will. And I think it's just something worth considering as we're looking at the economics and our commitment of our funds at this point in time. We can have a discussion about whether we should be committing 50% of the project cost. I share Paul Alpert's point that, you know, people view us sometimes as a bank. And I don't mind being a bank when it's justifiable that we should be part of the process. But I'm not sure that they should come to us as a bank every time they're concerned about how they're going to fund the project. Because if just for instance, if we said no, and it would have to go to an override, and I don't think the town is going to vote to override to do this building if we were to say no. So I think that's one of the concerns that's out there. So that's as far as I'm going with this. Thank you.
All right, well, Paul, why don't we, can I weigh in, Paul? Paul?
No,
can
I
speak?
would just like to ask a question to refresh my memory as to how much the request is at this time for the design phase from us,
I believe they're requesting 100% of the design costs.
which is how much is the requested?
1.5, I think.
1.475.
1.475 million?
And they're asking us for, why are they asking us for 100%? How can they justify that?
So I believe that we have done that in other CPA projects in the past, so I will double check, but I believe both Town Hall and the Rosemary Pool the design was funded out
But
of.
so even
CPA.
with the town hall, the CPC paid for the design of the addition?
I believe it did the full design, but
Wow,
I will confirm that.
okay.
That's
right,
okay. We're still talking a lot of money just for the
So-
design phase. Thank you.
All right, so we have seen, here's the thing, it's not a zero-sum game. We know through the memorial building, funding of a memorial building, they maintained that eligibility was something like $2 million or whatever it was. And we ended up funding $500,000. So it's not an all or nothing. We have seen enough on our financial modeling to know that if we did fund at a $12 million rate, that there would be periods of time, 3-4 year period under the financial model that we've seen, where we would have no money other than our dedicated reserve funds. We would basically have no funds available for any other projects except for money that would come in through the match from the state. So we know through the financial modeling that there will be, if we fund this at a 50% rate, we're going to be seriously constrained about other projects and other that we may or may not want to fund, including, it may be that the housing authority is finally at that point where they're going to be asking for money from not only the reserve fund, but we may be entering a period of time where there's a political will among the community to even go into the general fund to fund something like to help the housing authority in its rehabilitation. I'm just using that as an example. It could be open space, and it could be other issues as well, but we're going to be hamstrung about that with that. So it leads me to, I think maybe this may be a little premature. But I think that, and maybe it's not fair, so you can stop me. But am I getting a sense of the board that knowing the numbers that we've seen over the last 2 fiscal years and the modeling that we've reviewed, because that $12 million number has been on there for a long time, that our appetite for funding that full amount is not there, that it's not, and that the sense of the board is that's really not the way we see that. We don't see that happening. And I don't want to, I'm trying to be fair about how to deal with this incrementally, because there are a lot of moving parts to all of this, and I'll get to one in a minute, but that's my first question. A, do you feel any comfort? And again, I may be jumping the gun, but do you feel any comfort with communicating that the sense of the committee is it's not 50%? I mean, that's not a realistic number. We're not close to that because of because of the financial modeling that we've seen and how it restricts what we can do. It changes the landscape for us in terms of any options we may have and things that come up in the future. I'm throwing out the housing authority stuff only because I know that there's a serious need for it. And, maybe I'm wrong, but I get the sense that there's a lot of people who are interested in trying to help the housing authority. I'm using that as an example. So that's my question. All right, so I'll take, if that's okay. And the other piece is that I think that what I'd like to do is get some sense that information from the committee. And then I'm going to tell you that I think that I've heard different, I guess the way to describe it is give shreds of information from the Ethernet about whether or not this project as it is presently structured is actually going to be going forward. And I was going to ask to have a chair's meeting so that I could meet with the select board and the school committee chair and the chair of the FinCom, because my view on this is if the landscape is changing, I want to know, because I want us to be treated fairly. That's number one. And number two, I view this is our our valuable free time. And I don't want to waste our valuable free time if the landscape is changing. So I was gonna, that's one of the next things that I was gonna ask. I was gonna ask Carys about that, it would help me if we got some sense of the board. It's not binding, but it's some sense of the board of where we're going on this kind of, whether or not we're not a bank, by the way. Banks get their money back, plus the VIG. We're not a bank. We're a funding source. And whether or not we want to use this precious 2% permanent override that our citizens have authorized us, if we want to use it in this way. That's really what we're examining, okay? Whether or not it's a fair use of limited resources. That's what we're examining. So I guess I'll go in order, if that's okay with everyone. I don't know, again, maybe I've been at it, maybe I'm approaching this incorrectly, but that's kind of, if you will, I'd like to go in alphabetical order, get some sense from the committee about those two issues, which is one, sense of the board on funding, and then two, I don't know that I need your approval of this, but I need to get some, I think in fairness to this committee, we need some additional information. Okay, so let's start with Paul Alpert.
Okay, thank you. In terms of funding for the project, I don't know that it's fair for me to weigh in because I'm in the last year of my term limited seat on this board, so I'm not going to have a vote on the project itself in the future. But you're gonna, I think you already know where I am on that. I don't know what my replacement will feel about it. I don't even know who my replacement will be. I do want to say though, that on $1.4 million this year on the design, I'm willing to vote to chip in something, but I'm not willing to vote to chip in the full 1.4. I'm sitting here thinking I might be willing to vote enthusiastically to pay about a third of it, like $500,000. But that's a lot of money for this committee. And I wholeheartedly endorse your having a chairs meeting and finding out where they are on this project, because if they're seriously considering not going forward with the historic and just tearing it down and building a new building, I don't even want to fund the 1.4 million or any of the 1.4 million, because
Okay.
that's not a good use of our funds.
All right, good. That's good information. Okay, Barnes, Joe.
I don't think any one of us wants to be hamstrung going forward by having limited funds for other valuable projects. So if we're anticipating the request for $12 million, I think that I'm out on that. I think a portion of that certainly is in our purview and probably ability to do that. So I would say no on that. I agree with Paul that I think a portion of the design funds would be appropriate, whether it be 50% or I think 50% would probably be appropriate. But I think we've got a limited appetite for this being the only project that we can do in the next number of years. I would also support your getting the feeling from other board chairs as to exactly where we stand and what the feeling is at this time.
Okay. Good. Thanks, Joe. All right. And Bob Dermody.
Wow. There's a lot here. So I'll go all the way back to Mr. Alpert's first comments and Mr. Zimbone's in the first round. Very helpful. This is why we have this committee. So thank you for your thoughts on the financing and the sort of the machinations of how this fits into the town's bigger picture. But I'm looking at the handy spreadsheet that Carys gave us of all the prior projects, and in 3 consecutive years, this committee funded the town hall project. First was $50,000 for a study. Then there was $1 million for design, and then 14+ million for the project itself, quote unquote, I guess. So my question is, Well, I'm going to answer them backwards, Peter. Question 2, yeah, I would love to hear more information. This is the first time someone has put it into words the way you have about what the status of this project is. So that gives me great concern. If there's, my understanding is this is a go. They want to do this. They're looking for the money, full steam ahead. So that's really important for us to find out if that's not true. So that concerns me. Second, oops, sorry, did I lose you?
No,
No,
Okay, well, I lost you on my screen, so I'll just talk to my screen. Yeah, I'm concerned about funding design in the case that it doesn't go forward. I think a town can absorb a hit like that, but I don't think a CPC committee should absorb a hit like that. So that concerns me. As far as funding the full, I can't answer that yet. I don't think I have enough information, nor do I understand how that might affect other things. So I'll end with a question though. If we spent 14 million, were there 10 years of not funding projects because we spent that on the town hall? Actually, it's a 2-part question. And 2 is what about the whole bucket theory? Does that mean we can't fund any historic preservation projects or any projects at all?
so I'll jump in, I guess. Well,
Please do.
it has to do with the fact that we would be paying bonds on 3 projects simultaneously. The back end of the town hall, the middle guts of the pool, and then the beginning of Emery Grover. So
Okay.
those things come together. Do I have, you know what? I probably should have just let Carys talk, but it's,
I would just add, when we founded town hall, I think CPA largely was campaigned for in Needham in order to fund town hall. So it was sort of like a purpose-built program. And at the time, recreation was only eligible for work on recreation fields if it was purchased with CPA money. And so that really limited the number of projects that we could fund regardless of how much money was available. So now that we have the ability to do recreation projects on pre-existing land, the demand is much higher, and we funded a lot more projects in recreation since that change happened.
And so as far as the restricted buckets, what I said was those are required fundings. So after we fund the restricted accounts and pay our bonds under that financial modeling, we're not going to have any money left other than money that comes in as a match from the state.
Okay, but were we not able to fund projects because we funded the town hall?
Or there weren't projects that were eligible or submitted. So I'm not aware of projects being denied. I know that projects weren't submitted because of the restrictions on funding at that time.
But
the demand wasn't there, I guess,
but if we don't get an application, that's not our fault. I mean, because it looks like on this spreadsheet every year I see things funded. Maybe it's small dollar amounts, certainly, but so I'm not sure that argument of not being able to fund things, in my understanding right now, is valid.
Well, it's a math question.
And I guess I don't understand the math. Sorry.
What I'm saying, after you pay all of the expenses, the fixed costs, the bonds, then if you look at the financial model, then there is no money left available to fund any other projects during a certain period of time, other than money that could come in from the match from the state.
Okay.
That's what we're going to have dedicated fund. We're going to have lots of money dedicated to things, obligations that we're going to have. It's like having a really high mortgage payment.
Okay.
And we're not going to Aruba. That's because we have too many, because we have a big mortgage payment. But okay, so you can't make it. So your sense is I can't really make a decision on full funding, partial funding in terms of the project itself. I don't have enough information, And in terms of design, I didn't hear you on.
Design, no, I would not want to fund design unless it was at a very low level. Because if for some reason it didn't go forward, my theory is CPC can't absorb that hit. If the town wants to take a risk and design a building that town meeting decides not to build, I think the town can absorb that. I don't think CPC should absorb that kind of risk.
Okay.
And lastly, I'll just add, just so I'm clear with everybody, I fully believe this building should be saved, just period. It is worth it. It's valuable. We don't have any others like it. We will never have any others like it. It will last 100 years if it's done right. And I would like to do that. That doesn't mean I want to spend 12 million on it, but it should be saved.
Right. And I guess the other thing too is that it is on the National Historic Registry,
For a reason.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, okay.
Or I mean, there's a reason we have a National Historic Register. And this is
So
one
it's there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. That's a good, I'm glad you brought that up. Okay. Laura Dorfman.
So I just have a couple of things. They might seem random, but first of all, I just want to point out that the match from the state this year is 35% higher than it was for last year. It's 592,000 for 2020 versus 438,000 for 2019. That's a 35% increase. I know it's not millions and millions, but there is that. That's good news. And that's because of all the refinancings, which probably is going to continue into at least the first half of next year. The three options, to Penny's earlier point, they're all within $1.4 million of each other, whether it's a new building or a rehabilitation. The three options are all within between 27 and $28.5 million. So I'm not sure doing a new building is going to really save anything materially. A question you bring up, Peter, the housing authority and the potential, like the looming possibility of that needing some funding. I guess when we're thinking about these things at the beginning of the year, should we also be knowing about these other looming projects and the potential for what's down the road as we're considering all of these, not just this one, is a question. And lastly, what would other sources of funds be for design funds for the Emery Grover if we were only able to provide part of it? And I agree with, I think, Rick's points about, like, feeling out like the finance committee and other town important members that might, have a sense of this. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, so let's see. I think I can answer a few of your questions. So we have a capital plan, and that's how and projects end up on the capital plan. And so that's how we project out over a number of years about how it is that we think we're going to be spending our money. And actually your question raises something which is a good point, which is there is no number from the housing authority on that plan right now for their rehab and development. So I guess what I was speculating a little bit, but I was also saying that a few years down the road, that capital plan may change, and we may have, now I'm being a little unfair to the process because we have a process. It's a capital plan. Things are on the plan, and that's how we make some decisions. What I'm saying is, well, things might change in the next few years, and we're going to be hamstrung by this commitment. I offered as an example, well, what about the housing authority? Because we hear so much about, the housing authority and the fact that they have this plan coming and that people feel like they want to do something for that, to rehab that. Well, there aren't going to be anything. The only funds available to help from the town side are going to be the restricted funds, which are now, which are a relatively small amount of money. It's $2 million or something like that. That's in the bucket there, the restricted funds for housing. So my point in all of that was you're taking away a lot of discretion that we might have by funding this one large project, along with other commitments that we've made, the pool and the back end of the town hall. So if we don't fund the design work, well, then it comes out of the general funds from the town. The town has a budget. and they can allocate money and make a request of town meeting to fund design work. That's what they would do if this were not a historic structure. They would go to town, happens every year, a request for design work in anticipation of eventually making a building. So that's where the funds would be. I think I've answered this. I think I've answered your questions. And the sense, I was just trying to get a sense from you, a sense it is, and it may be that I'm not getting a sense here, but a sense from you, Laura, about funding 12 or $13 million for the restoration of Emery Grover out of CPC funds. And a sense from you about funding $1.5 million, the full amount of the design work, which is what's currently in front of us.
So I really like, I would like to see that building, at least the facade, preserved. You know, to be fair, to be honest, I haven't looked at all the math, and as you said earlier, it's a math problem.
Sorry.
So I guess that's all I have to say at this point, if that's okay.
I'm sorry if okay. All right, Ms. Kirk. Oh, I skipped Chris. Penny, I'm sorry, I skipped Chris. Can we let
I
Chris?
would appreciate, I have an international call at 8 o'clock.
Oh, you have another minute. Yeah, let's hear from you first.
I'll defer to Penny.
Okay, go ahead.
And also, Paul, we need to talk about our project. So we need to talk on the phone sometime.
Yes.
First of all, I didn't know it was on the International Register. That may limit what choices we have. I don't know what those restrictions are. I thought you couldn't change anything if you were on the International Register. But also, somebody made the point that the town hall or the town meeting, the people and their general view should be part of our decision making. I totally agree that putting money into a design project when you don't know if you're going to do it doesn't make any sense. I think you get a design after you know you're going to have the project.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry, guys.
That's okay. Thanks, Penny. Okay, see you next month. Okay, we're back to Chris Gerstel.
Going sixth, you guys took all the meat off the bones here, so I don't got much to go over. I do agree with Mr. Barnes and Mr. Alpert saying that I would have no problem doing half or even a third in regards to the design funds for something like that. My only kind of follow-up question, and please keep me honest or correct me here, during the last town meeting when the designs for where we are right now, that was brought into question because wasn't a design on the building done like 5 to 10 years prior on it? So this would be technically what, the third round of design funds to go to one building. And the last one that got done, like the ones where we saw oh, here's a side view, here's what it looked like option A and option B. Who paid for that? Was that CPC or was that the town itself paying for those options? So just, I mean, that's the only questions I have. Everyone else,
No,
great points.
Chris is a good question, which is that it's kind of the Siegenthaler objection. Can we revisit that?
So I would just clarify. So we haven't had the other designs, but we've had other feasibility studies of the Emery Grover. The feasibility study that was I believe you referred to it as a Siegenthaler objection, was investigating the potential removal of the building from the historic register and tearing it down. And I believe there was concerns at town meeting about utilizing CPA funds for what could potentially be the destruction of a historic property, as opposed to preservation, which is what this design is for. The funds, though, did come from the general fund from the town. They did not come from CPA.
Got it.
All right, Carys, thanks for clarifying that for us. Okay, and I guess it's Rick Zimbone.
Yeah, I've got a couple thoughts. First of all, if we were just, from my understanding of the math and the numbers, if we were, as Peter indicated, if we were to commit the full amount that they've requested, which was the last time I heard around $12 million. We'd be bonding that. We would use up all the money that's in the historical bucket, and we would be going into the general fund, general reserve, to finish covering that. And we wind up committing, between all the projects that we have on tap for now, we'd wind up committing all of the general reserve funds over the next couple of years. And as Peter indicated, the only money that would be left would be any matching funds, which we don't forecast, that would be coming in from the state. As Laura rightfully pointed out, that number went up this year. It's primarily because of the fees that people are charged to do real estate transactions. Now, yeah, it's going to go up next year, but the year after it might disappear. So from that perspective, I think we are constraining ourselves. I did bring up at the last meeting, Peter, and you weren't here. I wanted to talk about us thinking and considering changing our article and changing the percentage that we put in each bucket. Right now, we put 10% in each bucket. I had suggested at the last meeting, and we ought to have this discussion down the road because it's not really on the agenda, but putting 20% or some other number in each bucket, taking that money out of the general reserve so that one particular bucket could not consume all of the general reserve going forward. And I said this primarily because I was really concerned last time. If you take a look at all the projects that are out there, all of them are either recreation, open space, or historic. There is nothing there for affordable housing, be it renovation, be it new housing, nothing. And we provided to the housing authority, I forget the dollar amount, Bob might have it on his handy dandy sheet, but I think it was somewhere around between $150,000 and $250,000 for them to participate, hire a consultant to tell them what they wanted to do. And based on my understanding, just within the last couple months, they actually decided to go out and hire that consultant and start that work. So I would anticipate that we're going to get requests for affordable housing work that's going to come out of the housing authority or for some other agency, given the tenor of the town. I mean, we were the ones that brought up the whole concept of helping people with rental assistance money that came out of that bucket. And I got to believe that we're going to have demands from that end of the world on the money that we have in the CPA. So that's a long way of coming around to saying, I'm not in favor of spending $12 million or 50%. I believe that we should be restricting that amount of money. And similarly, on the, you've heard my position, I don't think we should spend any money on the design, particularly if they're asking for us to pick up 100% of it. I don't even think that's a reasonable ask. And I didn't even factor that into my request for 0% for us to give it to them. But clearly, I don't think we should be giving them 100%. And then finally, with respect to Peter, just some thoughts on you going forward with your with a chairs meeting. One of the thoughts that I had is part of that discussion of one of the reasons you could, in addition to kind of getting a little bit better lay of the land, if you will, and the thought process. But I think it's also fair to, even if it isn't 100% sense of the committee, there's a considerable thought process on the committee that we're not going to give them the money that they're looking for. And I think the earlier in that process, and we don't know yet how much that would be, but the earlier in that process, we notify the other chairs of this, it gives them ample opportunity to go around and start planning alternatives. Because right now, to the best of my understanding, they're counting on that money to fund the project. And if we don't, if we have indications that we're not going to fund it to that level, then I think in all fairness to everybody involved, we need to tell them that. Even if it's just, we don't know if it's a majority, but a good portion of the committee is against funding to that level. And I think that's a good way for you to introduce the need for you to have that conversation.
Okay, I appreciate the advice. I think that I think that's a fair way of putting the issue. I think that's a very fair way. Now, with concerning this funding of additional buckets, I think that we need to, in fairness to the public, we can put that on our agenda. I have some ideas about that. As an aside, I'll speak to Carys about that, about putting it on the agenda. You should take a closer look, and I think I'm okay to do this within the four corners of the agenda. We don't want to, I don't want to deliberate about it, but if you take a look at the statute, it provides for funding anticipated projects. That may be a vehicle that we could use if we get some sort of clear sense, say, for example, from the Housing Authority, that they're going to need, say, $5 million from us. And it may be that we could actually create some sort of savings account of some sort. And I don't want to put this on Carys because she's got a lot to do. I was thinking that maybe Rick, I know you have a lot to do, but you're not running the snowplows right now. If you look at our Community Preservation Alliance, do I have that right, Carys and Kristen? Is it the community? Okay. So if you go to their website, my question for them is this: I have this statutory provision. It allows for basically dedicating funds for anticipated spending in the future. Are there any examples of that? Because what can and how does it work? Again, we'll have to talk about, I want to put this on the agenda for a future meeting, but what happens, for example, with the Housing Authority, you can't bond a Housing Authority project because it's not part of town government. So, but it's worthwhile, but it may be something that's worthwhile to fund in a larger amount than what's just presently in the bucket. Can we create some sort of savings bucket, if you will, that's dedicated to anticipating spending that in like 5 years or 3 years or 2 years? Is that the vehicle for it? Maybe we'll have an answer from the Alliance as example for some sort of examples of creating these dedicated accounts, if you will. If from looking at the statute, it looks a little bit like the accounts that we put together on the town side for, paying for the turf, or capital maintenance funds. It's like these kind of funds that these, there are savings accounts that we can draw on for things that we anticipate we're going to have to pay for in the future. And what I'm thinking is that the reason that you might want to go to that vehicle is because if we're just putting more money in a reserve bucket, we're running a little bit of a first come, first serve operation here. Someone may come in and say, no, a worthy cause may come in and say, no, I want to develop housing using X. And we say, well, no, we anticipated doing it this way. And so we're actually, in a way, it makes it restricted for a particular use that we know we're going to have. So I would say just kind of do a little research in that direction. Take it off of Carys's plate, if you will. And then we could put it on the agenda for maybe even as early as next meeting, if that's okay. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yep.
Carys, does that make sense to you? All right, good. Okay, so that's a lot, and I'll report back to you. I'll see if we can do a chairs meeting, and we'll go from there. All right, next 02. Maybe we'll move through these a little more quickly. Preservation of town marriage records. So that's mine. I have nothing to report on that. So it seems that we're faced with a similar kind of situation we had last year, which is some of it seems like it could be funded and some of it is potentially problematic. But I'll do my due diligence if that's okay. Laura Dorfman, comment.
Just really quickly, someone asked last time if birth and death records were part of this, but they have already been done. So I just wanted to say that.
Great. So it's just marriage. Okay. All right. I've been a little busy, so but I'll get on that. Okay. Town common historic redesign and beautification, and that is
Myself and Mr. Dermody.
That is Mr. Gerstel and Mr. Dermody.
Mhm.
Okay.
No real big update at this time. I know that Bob and I are actually going to meet with Ed Olson sometime next week to kind of go over the whole scope of the project. But I mean, no new information at this time, unless Bob, you have something you would like to add.
Only the 2 town meeting members have already informed me they're voting no. That's
Okay,
all.
So what?
They don't think it needs to be renovated. They like.
Okay, all right, all right,
That's all I got.
fine.
great update.
Yep.
Okay, all right. The Fisher Trailhead will put up on the side, already is on that. The DeFazio Field, that's Alpert and Dorfman.
Yeah, we haven't done anything yet, but as I mentioned at the last meeting, you know, we pretty much covered this last year.
I think that we know where we're at on this, right? You should
Yeah.
have you should just brush off all your information. And I have some nice pictures, if you'd like to see them, which show that it's been wearing. And
No,
you should go out and look. You should go out.
Well,
Okay.
honestly, I think updated pictures would be good just to sort of solidify the request, right?
Yeah,
Paul?
no,
Yep.
I would go out. I don't know if you did it last go around, but I would go out with Ed, and I don't even know if Carys needs to be there, but go out. He'll take you around the track, and you'll get a sense of what he's trying to accomplish there. Okay.
when is our next meeting?
Okay.
January 6th.
Oh, it's that soon. Well, yeah, Laura, I'm really busy.
Listen, I have great walking boots, so don't worry
Yeah.
about it, okay?
I
Yeah,
think right now it's still covered in snow, but in a
Right,
few
right.
days it might not be. So that's
Yeah, Saturday it's going to be clear.
Snowshoes.
but
No.
well, before the 6th, I think we should at least have a conversation with Ed. And, you know, just kind of,
I can take a walk and take some pictures too before that, if that helps.
thank you.
Okay.
The person on the call would really ask you to wait until the snow is melted.
You know what? It's not. Here's the other
Yeah,
thing.
but
It's not you. Wait a minute.
it's going to be washed away over the weekend. So.
Here's the other thing. You've really done the work you've done is already in the can. You don't
Yeah.
need to do anything between now and January 6th. You could take a pass on January 6th.
No,
You're
right.
okay.
But I think to be fair to Ed, we should get in touch with him. Let him know that, you know, we're the liaisons and we expect him to, you know,
Okay.
bring his presentation up to date, and we'll see him, you know, whenever we schedule the presentation for him.
Okay. The McLeod Field renovation is also an RD project. Trail identification, that's me. I just kind of brushed off my questions from last year. And I think the only question that I have is, can you hear me? Because I'm freezing.
Yep.
Yes, we can. hear you.
Yes,
And
We can hear you.
All right.
There you
Sorry. I guess the remaining question is potential cost for the entire project after the design phase. That's really the remaining question. We'll see if we can get a better answer for that this year. But other than that, I think again, it's one of those projects where we should just, you know, dust off the questions and the answers and don't make extra work for yourself. All right, Walker Pond improvements. That's Rick and Laura.
yeah, Mr. Chairman, we've been contacted by the proponents. We're tentatively have a meeting scheduled, and I haven't confirmed this yet, but the offer was out to have a meeting with the group next Wednesday. And I saw Laura said she was available. The one part of that I was able to get from Chris Gerstel, who from Park and Rec is participating as part of that group. And so I've got to make contact with the two individuals there to check on their availability to attend that meeting. And so we plan to move forward there. We have received some information. I think a lot of the information we might have seen before, but we'll be, you know, a couple of the engineering studies and things like that. Some pictures came across showing the condition of the pond and the in the rather poor condition that it was. But so we'll be having a meeting discussing that with them and have a little bit more report in the next meeting.
All right, so the one question I have, and I guess it's a question slash concern, is that this is, we know that this is a neighborhood group that, you know, who originally came before us. It was really a citizens petition. I think that's what we called it. But it was an application by a group of citizens last year. And it was withdrawn. And now the town is now the proponent, right? So what I think I understand that the citizens are concerned and they're a constituent group that we should be talking to, but it seems that you don't want to be working at cross purposes with the entity that it's actually the proponent, right? So you got to, it's another way of saying, don't you want to have, you want to have Tony, you don't want to have Tony involved too, whenever, am I making sense? You want to have Tony.
You are, and that's one of the reasons why I at least initially wanted to get a hold of Cindy Chasson, and who's the new head of your group there, Chris?
Miss Stacy Mulroy.
Stacy, okay. Get a hold of her, and then after I got a commitment from them, I was going to contact Tony, but I wanted to allocate about an hour.
Great.
For that conversation.
Great. Okay.
Usually when dealing with Tony, it takes that long.
Okay. You know what? I don't want to tell you how to run your business. That's fine.
That's fine. I appreciate all the input I get.
Okay. Let's see. That is it on our updates. So our presentation schedule.
Mr. Chair, you're missing the last one.
Reservoir sediment.
Oh, excuse me.
We
I
have nothing,
apologize.
we haven't done anything yet. Penny and I have to coordinate. She mentioned that before she left the meeting, that she and I need to get together and then get together with whoever the proponent is. Is that going to be Ed again? Carys, do you know if
No, that's Tony.
it's Tony? Okay.
Well, the sediment will still be there.
Penny and I need to, after Christmas.
I share your sentiment.
Thank you. I needed that.
We're just trying to get through this year. How many days?
Actually, you know, I know something. I think this, on a more serious note, I listened to this excellent piece on the Daily. I don't know if you've heard of him anyway. And so today's Daily was things that were really good that happened to you in this past year. Okay. Hey, Carys, did you have your baby this year?
No, last year, but I got to see her
darn. I knew I was
walk
gonna,
this
you know what?
year.
I knew I was going to mess that up. I always mess things like that up.
Well, we'll take it. That's awesome.
All right. So at any rate, well, your baby probably walked this year.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay. So, I mean, I just thought, you know what, you got to, let's take a moment at some point, not tonight, but like, you know, think about the good things that happened this year. Anyway. Okay. So we're going to talk now about presentation schedule. Is that what you want to do, Carys?
Yeah, I just want to get it set up for the next few weeks to make sure we're not, because we do have quite a lot of applicants, to make sure we're not overloading one night and notify the proponents to get their presentations ready. I was thinking we would start the meetings on the 6th, and maybe we would start it with the repeats from last year, since they've already prepared the presentation. So that would be the track and the trail identification.
Great.
Track and trail has a nice ring.
And then the other one we could do is the Emery Grover, since I know they really have done their presentation before to this group. And they have it prepared, if that makes sense as well. And it does seem like the liaisons are, you know, have reached out and have had those communications.
That seems to make logical sense.
Mr. Chair, may I just make a quick input or suggestion? Just looking at the numbers, I think it's great, you know, doing the repeats from last year, but wouldn't it be nice to have Ed come in and do all of his projects at once? So you would have like the trail, the historic redesign and beautification, and the cloud all in one day. So instead of having them come back for another one, that would be my only suggestion of if you have them come, have them do them all.
I second that motion.
Okay, so maybe we'll do Emery Grover on the second meeting in January.
Yeah, can I ask Carys what the expectation would be for the Emery Grover presentation? We've had 2 of them. It appears as though we have all a clear understanding of their needs. We're only talking money, I think, and I'm not sure how they weigh in on that.
So I think, to be frank, they sort of jumped the line in some regards, and that they wanted to present prior to submitting an application. So it may make sense for them to focus more on the financial aspects and addressing the specific questions that
Okay.
have come up.
Okay, well said. Yep.
But I would suggest let's have them present on the 20th of January then.
All right.
If we're going to do all of the parks and forestry items at the same time.
Hey, did anyone, I'm usually the one who puts together the due diligence questions. Did we get any due diligence questions? No.
I mean, I got
you
one
people,
set.
you slackers. All right, but here, wait a minute.
It was
though.
that guy that ran the laugh meeting.
All right, so wait a minute. I have an easy, wait a minute. Here's the thing. Here's what we can do for each of us, all right? First of all, you got to do it. Don't put it on me or don't put it on Carys. So if you got a project, you got to do it. But here's the easy solution. I realized this after, I don't know how many years, I actually read the application. The application has it has a list of things that we may be asking you for, right, Kristen? The application process has a list of documents that we may be asking the proponents for. It does.
Okay.
So if you go to the application, you will have a ready-made cookbook of questions to ask. Okay?
Peter, Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
you mean the blank application that proponents fill out or the filled out application?
Blank. No, I mean the form application. Here, hold on. Let me get this.
I'm looking at one. I don't see anything.
Yeah, that's
Really?
my question. I'm serious.
It's the documentation with instructions, I believe, that
Go to the
referring
application
to.
process, right?
That makes more sense. I was like, the application as.
There you go. So it says application process, go to the bottom of page 4.
Page 4 of,
It's called, if you go to this is what Kristen gives us. The first page is called the Community Preservation Application and Process. So the first part of this book, you get this book when you join the committee. First part is this section on the committee and the statute, and then there's a tab, and then there's a section called application and process.
oh, I found it. How about
Okay,
that?
so then if you go to page 5, this is actually good because it actually focuses your thinking on the information that you would want in looking at your project.
Such as recorded plans of the land.
For example, site control, project scope, cost estimate, feasibility, maps, photographs, and then it goes on to the bottom of page 5. We may even ask you for some additional information. You can look at them. You can put together a really quick list.
But we might not need a USGS topographical map of the marriage record proposal.
Right. See, but all I'm saying is take a look at this. This was thoughtfully put together. And so use this as your guide, but you gotta, you gotta, remember, someone's gonna ask the question at town meeting. We probably want to have the answers now. Okay. Okay. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. So now on for the 6th, we have the Ed Olson show. Right? Okay.
Yep, and trail identification, which would be.
Okay, good. All right, good. And trail ID. All right, so that would be, it's, so it's 04, 06, 08. I'm missing,
7.
and 07. I'll take it again. 04, 06, 07, 08. correct? All right, good. All right, the 20th.
What about 05?
We'll do that on a different night.
That's not a,
That's
Not
not it.
in the same category? Okay.
No, it's not a park. It's not a park and recreation property that's being done by the
being held.
Parks
Okay.
and Forestry Superintendent. I would suggest we do Emery Grover, the town records, and the Fisher Street Trailhead.
on the 20th.
Yep.
Could you repeat those by numbers, please, real quick?
Sure.
01, 02, 05.
Thank you.
And then we can do the two water quality ones, the Walker Pond and the town reservoir together.
What date would that be, Carys?
2-3.
Thank you.
So on 2-3, we're going to do 09 and 10.
Thank you.
Okay, tentative public hearing, March 3rd. And any other issues?
Peter, I just have a question. Is there at some point where we get some progress or some updates on what's happening with the projects we approved for last year?
That's an excellent question. I don't know. I know that Kate files that as part of her report to the town meeting. And so I think that's how we find out the information. Is that right, Carys?
Yeah, and I think usually I did it at the very beginning, but annually I think we do an update. I would say maybe early February I could do that. I know that we're still working on getting contracts signed with some of the nonprofits, and Peter, I'll be in touch because I think we need to reach out to the Needham Housing Authority because we have not signed an agreement with them yet for the consultant. So if they've started the work, which is fine, we just need to get the paperwork to catch up with the process. So we can work on that. So what I'm thinking is those contracts and reimbursements won't likely be in place until a little bit later in our process. So there's probably not as much to update as there will be when we get further into the winter.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking like maybe June or July, just to
yep.
see how everything's going.
Yep.
If everyone think that's okay.
You know what I like? I think that Laura has struck upon something, if you think about it, right? I mean, I know that the Kate report, the town manager report is baked into the statute, right? When we did our amendment to the town governance, one of her requirements was for her to file a report. But Laura's kind of coming at it from kind of a funding source, which is like, hey, what happened to my money? You know, and so that's a good question. Hey, what happened to my money? And so we should think about that, instituting that.
I would think that the people who voted for this might also want to know.
Well, they do. Here's the thing. It gets baked.
They get it
into
once a
Kate's
year.
report. Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe I don't want to have to duplicate efforts on the town side. So maybe we'll figure that out. We'll figure it out so that, you know, when Kate's pulling it, maybe Carys works with Kate and pulls it together, and we can have a separate little side report that's not the double work, basically.
Yeah, and Carys, I'm not trying to give extra work. This is like a really overview, just something high level, just, oh, we've started this or this, you know, that would just be helpful.
Could I just ask a follow-up question? It's Rick Zimbone. If we allocate a certain amount of money for a project, and that money is not spent, does that all flow back to our general reserve fund, or does it go into the town's reserves?
No, it stays within the fund.
It stays within the CPA money. So we should, at some point, have a reconciliation of those projects when they're closed out. I think that's what the process is, and that's why I don't know. I don't believe I've ever seen one. I don't know if there is one or one exists.
Okay. All right. So we'll have to
Chair.
figure that out. So that's another question, Carys, that we got to figure out. Okay. All right,
Mr. Chair,
Mr.
can I-
Gerstel.
Yes, just quick thing, going back to the articles, if we do, or if it is determined that the town hall clock repairs is eligible, can we at least pencil them in for the 3rd as just a placeholder if we do determine they're eligible?
I think that's an excellent idea, Chris.
Thank you.
Okay, good point. We'll put them in for the 3rd, okay? Okay. That's like, with scheduling lunch. How about never? Never sounds good to me. All right. I'm just kidding. Okay. All right. Anything else? Oh, we have to approve the minutes from last. No?
We don't have minutes from the last one yet, so we'll put that on the next.
Okay.
Meeting in January.
All right. Am I missing? Is there anything else? Yeah, Rick.
Mr. Chair, just as under the other unanticipated part of the agenda, I just wanted to just remind everybody that today is the celebration of Festivus, for those of you who are Seinfeld fans. So just keep that in mind. The Festivus poll is somewhere, and we ought to be airing our grievances before we close the meeting out.
Should we go in alphabetical order?
I think it would be appropriate.
Go by height.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Alpert goes first, I guess. Not
I have
to,
no idea what you're talking about, so I'll pass.
wow. Somebody explain to Paul what Festivus is.
I was a Seinfeld fan in his first few seasons, but I stopped watching it after.
That's all right. Thank you.
All right. That wasn't, you weren't taking that seriously, right?
No.
That's fine. Because I didn't want to do a roll call on that. Okay, so I'm sorry, but what happened with the prior minutes? They're just not ready yet. Is that what it is?
We just didn't send them out, so we'll do both December at the first meeting in January.
Okay, good. All right. I think that's it, right? Can we have a motion to adjourn? I'll make the motion. Peter
Second.
Panther. Mr. Dermody, second. Okay, roll call vote. Alpert,
Aye.
Barnes,
Aye.
Dermody,
Aye.
Dorfman,
Right.
Gerstel,
Aye.
Zimbone,
Hi.
and Pingitore votes aye.
Adjourned.
Thank you, folks.
Okay.
Thank you, Kristen and Carys.